Welcome back to the Contacts Coaching Podcast. We are joined by East Salinas legend, athletic director and head boys basketball coach and owner of the Gil Basketball Academy, Coach Jose Gil. Excited to finally get this done since I was on your podcast probably a year ago.
I'm glad to be on the show, Justin. I appreciate you asking me. And I know sometimes you run out of guests, and, that's why people like me are around, for that kind of back up the backups kind of role,
Well, if we're being truly honest, I asked you months ago and multiple invitations have been sent, but you're too busy trying to do your thing on all the different endeavors you have going on that the only way I finally pinned you down was to tell you how much I needed somebody tonight. So appreciate you showing up in the way in which I knew you would.
No, I appreciate you having me on in all seriousness. And of course, everything you do with this podcast. I'm not going to lie to you. I just drove back from Las Vegas from Memorial Day tournament and listened to 5 of your podcasts in a row. So, it's good stuff. So
great. I appreciate that. Well, let's just dive in here then. Why don't you take us through your background as a coach? How did you end up coaching? What was the process for you, not just getting in, but ultimately becoming the head coach at your alma mater? And what's that journey been like? Take us through the whole thing.
It's one of those situations where right place, right time, I believe. Never did I envision taking over the program. I was the first in my family to graduate from college, first in my family to attend college, both sides of the family. So it was quite an adventure going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I had a, above average high school career and, playing basketball, playing sports and sports in all honesty, kind of saved my life, if you could say. Just because of where I grew up. I was born in East LA and I grew up in East Salinas. So both of those places have their challenges. And so, being a son of migrant farm workers, sports wasn't really their top priority, right? To get us signed up in city leagues or club sports. So I kind of did it on my own. Finally had the courage to try for the basketball team when I was a freshman, when I was attending Alisal High School, one thing led to another, and I wasn't cut. Come senior year, I had a good senior year. After that, when once again back to the topic of going to college, when I remember my counselor sent me down saying, you know what, you got to go to school next year. Where are you going to go? And I just remember I was going to play for Coach Forkham at Hartnell College. He sent me a letter wanting me to play there, and I was set. Hey, someone wants me to play. I want to continue playing ball. But truth be told, I got accepted to a couple of universities, and next thing you know, I decided to jump into that challenge of attending a university. Didn't have the courage to try out for the team, even though I was around athletes. My roommates were all on the basketball team, and so that kind of planted the seed in me to kind of want to come back to my community and teach and coach basketball under my high school coach, who's a legend, Coach Jim Rear. And so I had a dream to come back to coach on his staff with him, and wherever he wanted me as a assistant freshman basketball coach, I was in for it, and I was ready for the challenge. And when during that time after graduating from college and then going to graduate school, he changed schools and kind of threw a curveball, as pump fake, as you could say, right? And he went to a school that had just opened up here close by, Everett Alvarez High School. One of my former teammates, Miguel Martinez, took over the program and as a head coach, and offered me the freshman job. And so I accepted the challenge. At that time, I was coaching middle school at Peter Burnett Middle School in San Jose, because I was going to San Jose State once again for graduate school to get my teaching credential and my master's. And so I was excited to come back to Salinas and coach with my high school teammate, and I was going to be his freshman coach. And I did it for 3 years. And then he decided not to coach anymore. And I remember I was coaching a freshman game, and the athletic director at the time, Gary Mortensen, came into the gym during the freshman game, and I remember a couple of news reporters, I believe George Watkins and a couple of guys were at our freshman game, and that was kind of rare that they would go to a game. And I remember a local TV station also showed up for an interview, and I had no idea what was going on. And then next thing you know, they're interviewing me because I guess he had chosen me as the next head coach. And so that's how I landed in the position. And 20 something years later, here I am.
Okay, so he chose you as the next head coach before he ever asked you if you wanted to do it.
I remember a conversation about, like, have you heard that, Miguel Martinez is not coaching there anymore? And I'm like, I got caught off guard. And he's all like, what? You're perfect for the position. And what do you think? I'm like, whoa, let me think about it. And I had some good success at the freshman level, but that was nothing compared to varsity level. Once again, my plan was to come back and coach for Coach Rear, and Miguel was also on that plan to coach. We're both going to coach for Coach Rear, and one thing led to another, and things happen.
Fascinating. That's so funny. Can you talk a little bit about the way in which your decision as a first generation college student, and as you said, son of migrant workers, where sports wasn't really in the equation, how did sports, in your experience as a basketball player, which obviously informed your desire to coach later on in life, but how did that inform your decision to take the more academic route and pass on basketball kind of in the short term, rather than just go chase the sport thing?
So, I mean, my journey is totally different than most of the, I'll say all basketball coaches in our area that I know of. Going back to the community where we grew up here in East Salinas, working the fields, right? That the vegetable capital of the world, right? My parents grew up mainly in the lettuce component of it. And so when I was a freshman, I remember my dad was pushing me to get my work permit because I qualified to work in the summers with him. And truth be told, those 4 years of high school working every summer, cutting lettuce in the fields, waking up at 4 a.m, wishing to get out of work before the sun went down so we can go play at Gloucester Park where we grew up playing for free, right? Because it was a park. It was the only park we had in East Salinas. And then I didn't know what lesson he was trying to teach me at the time. I kind of rebelled against it in some ways because I didn't think it was fair that my friends didn't have to work in the fields and I did. But his lesson was he was trying to teach me that education was the only way out. My dad had a 4th grade education. My mom had a 6th grade education. And so that was their way of kind of indirectly telling me, like, you have a chance to finish high school and go on. So this is how can I say, their way of guided me in the right direction. And of course, they knew I loved sports and they knew I loved basketball in specific. I played baseball in high school as well, but found more of a love for the game of basketball. And I remember I'd cut lettuces and throw them into the boxes like I was shooting my form, and that drive helped me get through college, and it helped me, think about what I want to do for the future, which was, once again, be on staff at Alisal High School and be teaching art at the time, because that was also one of my passions.
Yeah, and I want to go down this road a little bit more before I get to the coaching piece of this, but I also want to frame this in a way that we can do it in a tight window. Your dad had you work in the fields to basically say to you in not so many words, you don't want to do this, go to college, which then led you to go get a degree at Cal Poly, immediately go get your credential and master's at San Jose State, eventually found GBA, which has a big component of it that's college-based and focused. Your eldest child goes to Stanford now. And it's interesting the way in which that decision all those years ago has influenced the way in which you both coach, but make academics the center of everything. How has that grown over the years as you've seen putting that first actually uplifts more people than just focusing on the sport itself?
Well, that's a great question. And I think my answer to that would be the kids that I coach, the majority of them, I mean, I see myself through them. I was fortunate to have both parents. The majority of my kids come from broken families, but I've seen it within my own family, right? Of close relatives that just, had it rough, as you could say. But I think using my story without really using my story, if that makes any sense, because I lived it, makes me more compassionate and more understanding when I get kids that I know can't afford things, I know are struggling. I use the game of basketball to say, okay, don't worry about it. We'll figure this out through my academy to help you compete in an AAU season. And we'll figure out the financial situation. You don't have to worry about that. So, my wife does an amazing job of applying for grants so we can get scholarships. And we give out about $20,000 of scholarships every single year to those type of kids that we know would really benefit from an experience of playing through our academy. But I believe making academics a priority has always been one of our core values, because we obviously did it. My wife and I did it. So we always tell the kids, so could you, don't tell me all these obstacles, speed bumps are in the way. What are you going to do to overcome them? Right. So, we help them get through it, and we try our best to empower them, right, as you could say.
No, absolutely. Appreciate you for sharing that. Let's pivot back to the coaching piece. So you're a freshman coach for 3 years, and then it's basically announced to the media before you're told that you're going to be the new program director / head coach at the school, which leads me to wonder, what did you realize after, as you said, being a relatively successful freshman coach, that you still needed to figure out when you didn't just move over to the head coach chair, you moved up 2 levels from the freshman to the varsity and into the head coach chair?
Yeah, it was immediately I just remember, my parents couldn't help me with this experience, right? They were naive to say, okay, they just knew I was a coach, right? And they knew that my game started at a later time. I remember that. It was like, oh, you're not coaching at 4 p.m.? What time is your game today? 7 p.m. Let me explain why. And I think together with my wife, once again, who also had a pretty good high school career, playing sports herself, we figured it out. We just figured it out. Because I was always a student of the game. I always wanted to learn. Knowing that my style was going to be different than my high school coach's style, unintentionally, I was very similar because that's what I knew. But at the same time, there was also a legend in our program in Cork Haddon, who was our JV coach, and his style was totally different, And so I had to figure out what my style was, what fit me, and my mannerism and my beliefs. And so I remember I was attending Nike camps, Nike coaching clinics. I was meeting people. I was networking. I started coaching these pretty elite basketball camps of where there was some amazing coaches. And so just networking, trying to learn and being a lifelong learner, I believe I just evolved into something that was fit my style and my personality, my beliefs, not necessarily somebody else's, but I am who I am, and my kids reflect myself in a way, and a lot of grit, a lot of hustle. We call it ganas, I guess, right? You remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. With that ganas, you also assumed at one point or were appointed to the role of athletic director. Now, you coached for a long time. I don't know the exact years. You'll probably share that in a second, but same question. When you slide over from the head coach job into the athletic director chair, while still keeping a foot in the other world. What did you realize, one, that you didn't understand about being an AD, but two, and I think this is really important to offer to the coaching community, what are the things that you realized about athletic administration that the coaches don't understand and need perspective so that everyone can better do their job and be supportive of one another?
Yeah, when that happened, the opportunity presented itself to become athletic director. It was, I took it more as a personal challenge to mentor other coaches and to kind of share my knowledge, whether it was fundraising, organizational scheduling. I was always pretty good at that stuff. And obviously it caught the admin's attention. Um, I was very self-sufficient. I didn't really need the AD. He gave us, I remember the ADs at the time when I was coaching at my younger years, there was deadlines, I met them. Boom. And we both know as coaches and ADs right now, that people who take care of deadlines, who do what they're supposed to do and just focus on their sport, we're good. What do you need from us as ADs, right? How can I help you, right? And those are the ones that we want and we work best with. But as the years evolved, I think I found my niche in this department, in this area, and I believe I've grown into a really good mentor for coaches, organizer for the kids at school, and supporter, to where, because my heart and my passion is at our school, right? And when you're fully invested into a place and to a community like I am, things just come naturally. And when these new projects come up, we dive into it and we figure it out, right? And then we learn from them, we move on and we reflect, and I always use the term of climbing the ladder, but it's okay to kind of look down and say, okay, enjoy the moment, enjoy the process, but keep on trying to climb. And so it's been a natural fit, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, from a standpoint of relationship building, obviously that's something you're good at. I mean, Gene and I jokingly refer to you as the mayor when we're talking about certain things within the league. But the other thing I'd be curious about is, if, let's say you hired me randomly, whatever my background is, to coach a particular sport, what is the advice you're immediately giving this individual, me per se, or maybe mandates like, look, these are the top 3 priorities right now. You need to do this before you do anything else?
Yeah, that's another good question. But I think first I try to find someone that's a fit for our school, our community, our culture, and that's invested in it. Because like I always tell coach, perfect example, I had a swim coach that I hired a couple of years ago, and I take pride in people that I hire, because, and also one of the toughest challenges is getting rid of coaches that I know are not good for our community, for our school. That's, as you know, that's tough, right? When we have to make those decisions. But the hiring component of it is fun, because I just hired a swim coach a couple of years ago, and I remember her saying that she wanted to turn our swim program into like something like GBA, like my academy. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean by that? And she said, I want to be able to get these kids and teach them from the ground up and have access to your pool and just kind of do some year-round stuff. I'm like, done. What else do you need? And she's like, oh, okay. And what if we get some new, equipment? And done. All I ask for you is this, that when these kids meet you and they believe in that you're really there for them, these kids will do anything. I mean, they might not know how to dive in or swim. We swim Mexican style here. We'll get from point A to point B. It may look ugly, but we'll get there, but if you teach them the right way, I guarantee you these kids will just, because they're hard workers, right? They got the grit, they got the ganas. Third year, she wins a championship for the first time in school history, because she was just an amazing person and she believed in our kids and she had a process. So if you came to apply to our school, first thing would be like, do you understand our community, right? Do you understand that these kids work? I mean, they literally have jobs after, some might work till 3 a.m., and still have to go to school. So we have to be able to dive into their situation and figure out what's going on. When I explain, let me give you an example of some of my basketball players. When I tell people stories about, let me tell you a little bit about this kid, his background. People like break down in tears and say, well, I would have never known. And it's like, well, you don't until you actually start, getting to know them, right? And you might mistakenly, or you might mistake their, I can't make it to practice today for they don't care, they just have no interest. I don't think so. Let's figure this out, and you'll be surprised how there's some stuff happening in the household that's causing this for them not to show up. So a little more compassionate and like you said, or willing to dig deeper into the situation to figure out the family dynamic.
Well, I think there's two things you said that are really important there from a coaching and administration standpoint. One is whoever you're hiring a mission appropriate fit for your school. There's great coaches everywhere, but are they the right person for the student body that ultimately we're serving? And considering we should all, as coaches and administrators, try to keep the center or the student at the center of the equation, like that question has to be asked. And two, right? Build relationship. Like, what do you have going on in your life? What are the challenges that you're facing? What do I need to know in order to serve you better? And to your point, if you just assume people can't come because they don't want to be there, you're missing an opportunity to really learn who those student athletes are.
And some of the basic questions, I mean, to answer your, I don't like surprises, right? I don't want to wake up the next morning and hear about something that happened in a game, communication has to be like on point. We have to be able to communicate. And you well know that we're on 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, 7 days, 8 days a week, right? Our wives know that as well. And the whole differentiate yourself, that you're the adult and they're the students. There's a fine line there.
Right.
You can't cross that. You're not their friend. We're not I'm not hiring a buddy, right. I'm hiring someone that's going to make the tough decisions and come down hard when they have to, but at the same time, uplift them and, love them as much as we can.
Absolutely. Let me follow with this. And this one is a singular question that fits both hats you wear. What do you think is the best thing you do in your program that has the largest ripple effect on the culture you're hoping to create, either institutionally or just within your basketball program? You can answer it either way.
I think very organized. I think organizationally, I think that's one of my talents. Being able to think outside the box and get creative. My artistic side, once again, my background in art and design has led to many projects at school that have transformed the school, the culture, the way it looks. People walk on campus and are surprised at all of the different projects, right? Whether it's signage, whether it's, murals, whether it's the floor of the gym, the walls, all those details I think are very important and crucial, right? There's no cutting corners anywhere. And I think our principal has done an amazing job of supporting me with my crazy projects and adventures. But I believe it adds an extra incentive for the kids to feel like, we got what other schools have. We might not be a private school, but we look like a private school. Our uniforms, the way we walk into gyms, all those things matter. And I think that's something I take pride in.
Yep. Let me, I'm going to restrict you in this next question where you're not allowed to use another basketball team / program as an example. Has to come from a different team or sport. But what have you learned watching other teams that you have implemented on your basketball team?
Yeah, perfect example. We have a really good football coach, Coach Chides, who is also an educator himself. I love receiving emails from him of projects he's doing, his practice plan. I always ask coaches to share information with me. and I always collect everything in folders,
Mhm.
once again, back to the organizational part of it.
Mhm.
So letters they sent to parents, etc. So he's really, really good at sending me stuff and saying, Coach, here's my conditioning schedule, my weight training schedule,
Mhm.
and our pregame, postgame
Mhm.
um, itinerary. And so I always um, examine it, and then I'll go out there and talk to him and tell me more about what you're doing from 3 to 4:30, because I'm intrigued with that.
Mhm.
And he'll tell me, and he gets excited that I ask him,
Mhm.
right? But once again, I'm just trying to learn. I'm just trying to
Mhm.
understand him, but at the same time, also learn and grow as a coach. And he's one of a few examples on campus of coaches, but he's the first person that comes to mind,
Mhm.
because he is always driven by educate academics, and
Mhm.
at the same time connecting with the kids. And I think that's how he gets the best out of them as well.
Mhm. Is there anything that you can point to that you've stolen specifically from one of your fellow coaches on campus and used, even though it didn't originate in basketball?
Wow, that's a
You can come back to it. Think about it while I ask the
yeah,
next
yeah,
question.
yeah.
How has your approach to coaching changed over the years? So from whatever, 1998, 99, whenever you took over as the head coach until 2022, how has your approach changed?
My approach has changed in many ways. I think personally, I've matured a lot. I remember when I was younger, and we've been going at it for a while. We things that we thought were I guess serious at the time were really not. I've learned to get over losses quicker, and to say, you know what I got, and I'm doing my best. Right, next year I might be loaded with more talent, but I'm still the same person. So my approach to things have simplified, whereas I used to have 30, 40 different quick hitters and sets, and to the point where it's like, you know what, keep it simple, master what we're doing, and I don't have no 6'8" guy to run that triangle offense through. So stop doing that. So I I've simplified the playbook, but I've also been better at reading what I have every single season, and being okay with making changes and adapting.
Yeah, well, I think that's the key, right? It's, hey, this is how I want to play, but I don't necessarily have the personnel for that. So, how willing am I to try something else? Not just because I'm bored, but because necessity is the mother of invention. And what you said was, I've simplified the playbook. And I think that, you've known me for a long time, and I'm sure as you go through your scouts when we play each other, it's like, I don't know what the hell they're doing, he doesn't know what the hell they're doing, they're just going to do what they want. And it's like, there's
Exactly.
a certain level of simplicity, and then there's the other extreme, and finding where you belong somewhere in that is right for you, right? And as you've evolved, right, what have you held on to and what have you let go of? Are there some specifics that you can say, and even offer this up for the younger coaches in the audience, which is like, I used to think this was super important, and I can't tell you the last time I even thought about that.
I'll tell you what, man. Dropping my ego is another one that I'm thinking about, because I remember I've played against something. Hey, man, you got to teach me that out of bounds, but that was nice. And I do it to many coaches.
Right.
After games, we whether win or lose, I'm still the same person, man. And I think people that know me, even as intense as we get during games, at the end of the day, you're still my guy. Whether you're beating me, 3 times a year, or I'm beating you 3 times a year, that does not change. So, but I as I've gotten older, I'm okay asking, like, hey man, would you run against us during, that half court set, and show it to me, share it with me, right? And once again, if it works for me, and if I could, fit it into my style, then I'll try it. But I'm not you, you're not me. I know that. But I'm okay learning still, right? Trying to pick up little nuggets.
Well, and that's, I think we all figure out as we get older that we really don't know a whole lot of anything. Whereas when we're younger, we think we have all the answers. So I appreciate the vulnerability sharing that. So this is something else that I often ask, and considering you just got back on a 7-hour drive and then hopped on a call with me from Vegas, taking 5 of your teams down there to play. This doesn't have anything to do with basketball. It doesn't have anything to do with necessarily coaching and administrating. Maybe it fits into that box, but this idea of growth mindset and challenging your beliefs is the question. What have you most recently changed your mind on?
Wow. I would say I've changed my mind on time, I guess I would say. Let me see. Before it would be, if you're late, this was going to happen to you. Now it's more like, you know what? I got so much stuff going on in my life as well that I think, hey guys, I'm going to be a few minutes late. You're okay with that. And then now it's reciprocal. They know that they can come to me and be like, Coach, I just came out of tutorials, but I really have to go to the restroom. Before I'd be like, no, you should have went at, during lunchtime. I've changed my way of taking that in and just being more human, I guess you could say. Because before, I mean, I was just too stubborn. I was just too stubborn to be like, no, there's nothing that you practice is a priority, and right. And my way is the only way.
Well, I heard one of my guests share with me one time that he stopped getting upset with people for being late after an incident where he basically went off on one of his kids and found out, or why they missed practice, that they were in the hospital after being in a car accident. Right. And so I think Chad Sanji, who I had on at one point, was his approach to when people show up late now is, hey man, I'm really excited that you're here. Thanks for being here. And then you could always circle back later.
Exactly.
But it's such a transformational deal in that the kids then can share, hey, this is going on, or, you're reinforcing that you care about them rather than the rule.
And here's an example that kind of goes along that line. I remember we had a practice, and this kid, it was a Saturday morning, kid was not there. And I thought, okay, let me call. When I was younger, I wouldn't call. I wouldn't make that call and be like, all right, you're absent. Whatever the consequences were, that's just the stubbornness, right? Let me call this kid. Next, the conversation turned into, Coach, there's cops here at my house, and I don't know why. I'm like, what are you talking about? They want to talk to me, but my mom's not here. I'm like, get them on the phone. Let me talk to them. Well, he was a suspect in something that just had happened. And I'm trying to justify, no, this kid plays for me. He would not do that. The police officer, said, let me call you on a different line, and said, Coach, I know, is he part of your basketball academy? Yeah. Well, someone led us to believe that he was a kid from your academy that is a suspect because of a picture. I'm like, well, that's him. But when did this happen? It happened yesterday. I'm like, he was with me at Cluster Park. We were out there playing ball. Are you sure? I'm positive. Well, it ends up being, it was a stepbrother that he didn't know existed from the same father. I mean, and I'm like, please just they brought him to practice, Justin.
Yep.
And the kid was just like, I could have imagined finding out on Monday what had happened. But yeah, if I would have been my old me and been mad at the whole weekend thinking, you just shouldn't show up. So,
well, even if you didn't call, given what we know about how those circumstances sometimes unfold, he might not have been there Monday because he might have been detained. Exactly. So, so it's just good to think about. I like that, the idea that, I need to dig in a little bit more on the why rather than the what when I'm dealing with my athletes. What would you do if you were starting over today? And I'm not necessarily going to say, what would you do differently? Because I think our journeys all inform who we are and what we've been able to accomplish. But if you had to give yourself advice to that guy that's starting off green, both as a freshman coach, a middle school coach in San Jose, the head coach, starting your academy, if you had to boil it down to kind of three things, these are the advice nuggets I would offer myself if I had a DeLorean to go back in time.
I would have kept more kids at a younger age on the varsity level, like I did my freshman. When I was coaching freshmen, I'd have 19, 20 guys on the team. And I'm trying to justify to our head coach, let me just keep these kids. They'll do the stats, they'll do the books. Mm-hmm. And when I became the varsity coach, I don't know why I thought that, 15 is the max, but if I have 12, it's an ideal, because I had heard so much of that, right? 12 is an ideal number. Mm-hmm. And my heart was telling me like, these poor kids might not be as talented, but that was me back in the day. Mm-hmm. So I always kept one or two of me's, right? That I thought, mm-hmm. but I should have done 5 or 6 of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to do that more now, these last 5, 6, whatever years, in which, I'll offer them a position as a manager, mm-hmm. And my rosters are 18 now. Mm-hmm. And that's the advice I would give my younger self. Just follow what you believe is the right thing to do, and it'll if it changes their lives, they might not appreciate it and take it for granted and be like, well, I don't play, so okay, mm-hmm. that's fine, because that used to happen when I was doing the freshman, but there's no difference from freshman and varsity, I guess you could say, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, now you've gotten to that point. I mean, this year specifically, you and I talked after what happened with your team, where it was like, I'm playing everybody every game. Yes. We're just playing everyone. And so that shift, which happened this year in a very pronounced way, is now actually aligning with, what? We just play later. It's the same game. It should be the same approach.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this, because I didn't plan for this and it just kind of organically came up. What lessons did you take away from that shift in regards to playing everybody? And do you think that you will still be that extreme, or will you find some sort of middle ground? Who knows?
Yeah, I think I'm still going to be that extreme, mm-hmm. to be honest with you, and figure out a way to still make it work and, and have success. Mm-hmm. Because, like this, for example, this coming year, we calculated I'm going to have 10, I believe 11 kids that were on the freshman team that are still hanging around mm-hmm. as seniors, mm-hmm. and, that's a recipe for, oh my God, you don't want all seniors on the team, right? You got to mix it up. If my roster has 18, because I have those 11 kids and they've worked so hard for it and they're still hanging around, mm-hmm. then I'm going to do it, mm-hmm. because I'm going to feel good about it, because you know what? That 17th, 18th guy, he might go off to college, be successful, come back and say, Coach, you didn't cut me. You believed in me. And I appreciate that. I didn't play, but I wanted to be part of the program. And I get a lot of that now. Mm-hmm. I just want to be part of the program. Mm-hmm. And to me, that means like, you're still just as important as starting point guard, mm-hmm. or the top scorer. And so mm-hmm. I've metamorphosized into a person that is more, once again, compassionate and understanding for that, and made them all feel relevant.
Mm-hmm. All right, last question. You listened to 5 episodes driving home, and you've listened to a bunch before, and you always give me feedback, and I appreciate that. What is one thing that you have learned from one of those episodes that has helped shape your approach in the last 18 months?
Wow. Let me see. Off the top of my head, the one with Michelle Noth, I think was really powerful. The fact, she's, I remember when you asked her about jumping, she's been to 3 different schools, and, and I think I love the fact when she said, she had coffee and bagels, I believe, to kind of bring the coaches in, and to kind of, I used to do those kind of things, and I thought, what, on the way back, I was taking notes, and I didn't listen to her episode today, but I was like listening to episodes, taking notes and thinking, okay. And I remember my wife being the passenger, and she's saying, you used to do that. You used to do that. I remember when you did that. You stopped doing that. And so I thought, okay, the podcast inspired me to say, you know what? There's nothing, there's no need to reinvent the wheel, right? If you're already doing it and it's been working or it worked, don't deviate from it.
Mhm.
Find a way to come back to it because that's who I am and it comes naturally and organically. And so I remember I told myself, I'm gonna come back to it. I always have an open door policy, but now it's gonna be like, let's eat, come in. And then also do that with the student athletes in every sport. I believe I'm going to have a day in which this year I did it. I got a lot of cookies donated from a local bakery. I remember I walked outside my office and I just started who wants some? And I remember the next day I went to go get more just to give them away. And I thought, okay, I need to do more of those kind of things because that connection with the kids and the student athletes is immense. And they may not be the stars on campus, but it's a way to be relevant and to stay once again connected to the student athletes or
Awesome.
students and population.
Love that story. Appreciate you being here today, Coach, and saving me from my lack of organization.
Yeah, Justin, it's keep on doing what you're doing, man. These stories are amazing. There's so many great coaches out there doing amazing things, and you're just bringing it out in them and sharing it with the community. So thank you for all you do.